Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Crypto News Podcast. It's your host, Matt Seha. We are buzzing as always, still coming in hot from Mexico, and my guest is so far away from me in the world today, which I always love. And it's super wild. When I'm recording, it's 9 in the morning. For him, it's 9 at night. Might even be 10 at night. He's coming in hot from Singapore, and their company is absolutely blowing up right now for good reason. We have the one and only Brandon Go on the show today, co-founder and CEO of TRHX Labs, the parent company of TRHX and Treehouse. The firm builds infrastructure, data, and standards to enable confident and informed investments in digital assets. Before founding Treehouse, he held fixed income roles at Morgan Stanley and Wells Fargo Securities, focusing on credit derivatives and asset-backed securities. Good old TRADFI, baby. He also holds a bachelor's degree from the University of Michigan and Arbor, one of my favorite unis in the world. Gotta love Michigan. Brandon, welcome to the show, my friend. Pumped to have you on. How you doing this lovely evening?
Thanks, Matt. Doing really well. I mean, it's 9 p.m. over here, but everything's going well. Where crypto never sleeps, so happy to be on here.
You guys are grinding. I love that, man. Again, just reading the bio, University of Michigan. I went to school at Brock, which is, about an hour and a half outside of Toronto. I studied sports management, thought I was going to be, the next big general manager, and then realized, it's not how it works. Like you gotta get hell lucky. You gotta get, you gotta have ties, or you gotta be super rich to sort of just get, or you gotta be a pro X player, which obviously I got none of the above. So then I was like, then I'll do the whole finance thing, marketing, sales, blah, blah, blah. And super glad I did. But my friends and I took a couple trips to one of the best universities in the world, the University of Michigan. And we thought we had it good, in Canadian unis, and we thought we partied hard and we had a sick campus and everything. And then we went to Ann Arbor. Dude, how much fun was that? You must have had just an electric 4 years at University of Mich.
Well, I mean, yeah, definitely. It was a great time. I mean, it's a great sports school. The football team, during the fall, you have to go for every game. You have to, when they're away, I'll watch it. It's
Big
amazing.
house,
Yeah, it's a great college town.
So much fun, and just, go blue, baby. Beautiful place too. Well, look, let's jump right into it. Before we get into Treehouse, and again, you guys have a pretty unique company in the sense that you have multiple arms, I guess, which is not that unique for crypto because many companies do, but can't wait to get into everything that you guys are doing. The decentralized offered rates, which, you guys have sort of coined as the DOR. Usually when you see DOR with a little Y, it's like do your own research. So when I first saw that, I was like, oh, what are they doing with do your own research? But no, it is not that. And then of course the tAssets, the liquid staking tokens, which are so freaking cool. Before we get into that though, give us a little bit about your background. You did, the pretty classic TradFi, bada boom, bada bing, and then probably said, enough of this. Crypto is way more fun, and probably jumped into that. But set the stage for us, set the table. Tell us about your past in the TradFi world, and then we'll get into Treehouse and all of the fun crypto stuff.
Sounds good. So I started from the traditional finance world. So prior to starting Treehouse, I was at Morgan Stanley doing credit derivatives and, I guess asset-backed securities. While I was doing that, pretty much I was very, very active in crypto still. So during the day, we'll be trading fixed income products, but during the night, I'll be doing DeFi. So got into...
DGenin.
That's right, exactly. Started in like 2019, when all the DeFi protocols were popping up. And we had a little crew, like a crew on the trading floor that would just be super degenerate. We'll be doing a bunch of plays together. A lot of them went on to start crypto companies too. Some very big names as well. I'm sure you've heard of Arbor. And then there's couple close friends of mine that started hedge funds as well. So when guys started leaving the space into crypto rather, I thought, hey, I had to make the move myself as well. So I wanted to do something that was similar to what was good at, right? So fixed income made sense. It was natural. And when you look at even today, crypto, fixed income is really underrepresented compared to all the other asset classes. So we're really trying to solve that gap. And yeah, I've been working on it for the past 4.5 years, bringing Treehouse to life.
That's crazy. I think a good place to start would be the fixed income market as a whole, because it's a term that gets thrown around all the time. I mean, it makes, like, if you just sort of dissect the two words fixed income, it sort of says exactly what it does, but it's obviously very complex. And it's $1 trillion industry. So before we get into obviously the Web3 solution that you guys are providing at Treehouse, tell us a little bit about fixed income and sort of the main, I don't want to say problem, but just how it's a little inefficient and can be much more efficient.
Yeah, for sure. I think, the way I think of fixed income is to look at it from like a car perspective. And within the car world, you think of the Toyota Corolla as the most trusted vehicle, the most sold vehicle. It might not grab anyone's attention, but it's dependable. It's the go-to choice for individuals seeking a safe and predictable journey.
Yeah.
So across all the asset classes that are in, traditional finance, fixed income can be characterized as the Toyota of the investment world. It's really the umbrella that houses all kinds of financial instruments that pay interest reliably, just the kind of investment that would make your grandparents smile. And so, I know what a lot of people may be thinking when they're hearing this, this is crypto. Who wants a Toyota when you can have a Lambo? But believe it or not, there's a growing crowd in digital assets that want products that are more predictable. So with crypto becoming more mainstream, particularly with the picked up in institutional interests, demand for fixed income products is picking up fast. You can think back just 3 years ago, did anyone really expect Bitcoin ETFs to become a reality? The landscape is moving super, super quick. And I think fixed income is supposed to be the next in line. And if, just the premise really of Treehouse and why we're trying to bring fixed income into crypto is that, just to put things into perspective, the global fixed income market is worth a staggering 600 trillion. Compare this to equities.
That is insane.
Yeah. And compare this to equities, like the asset class housing, your Nvidia and Tesla, fixed income is nearly 5 times larger. So of all the derivatives that exist today, fixed income comprises nearly 90% of the universe of instruments. So, that mortgage, your bank deposit, money you lend to your friend, it all falls under this umbrella. And I think, in crypto, while you have certain components of it, there's still a lot that needs to be done.
That's insane. So fixed income, 600, that's got to be the biggest financial asset class in the world, right?
Real estate, besides taking away FX, right? Because that's how you calculate or value things in general. Yeah. Real estate, it's up there as well. But between those two, they're both massive.
That's insane. Okay, and let's just do classic, whiteboard chalk talk here, the solutions and the problems. We'll start with the problems. Like what were some of the deficiencies perhaps that you saw in the TradFi fixed income market, and segue that into, I guess, right into Treehouse and what you guys are doing to just make this way more efficient, way more easy, way more accessible, way more decentralized?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. I think, there are a lot of issues that center around, fixed income and traditional finance, but I guess the question that we're actually trying to solve at Treehouse, it's not so much we're trying to solve those issues. It's actually to bring infrastructure that can, expand fixed income products into crypto. So we're solving the decentralization side of it. Right now, obviously on traditional finance, everything is centralized when it comes to benchmark rates, when it comes to whether it's deposit at the bank. But when you talk about crypto and fixed income, so Treehouse is just trying to bring, firstly, decentralization into the fixed income landscape. And the second thing is we're trying to build infrastructure to spur the development of new fixed income products and primitives in crypto. So there are really 2 solutions that we're launching, and one of which we call tAssets, and the second of which we call DOR, or decentralized offered rates. And they're very much intertwined. Happy to jump into both of them.
Brendan, I'd love to start with the tAssets here before we jump into DOR. Again, it's just like the ability to have tAssets, the ability to have liquid staking. It's so important. And I think this would be a great place to start before we get into DOR. So table is yours. Tell us about tAssets, tETH in particular. Obviously, ETH, biggest protocol when it comes to DeFi. Solana is making moves very quickly. But when you come to just overall volume and the TVL, like you still can't beat the ETH TVL. It makes sense to build in that. But walk us through tETH, tAssets, and then we'll get into DOR.
Sounds good. Yeah. So tAsset is a liquid staking token, exactly as what you said, with a twist. And the twist here is that it provides you additional yield on top of proof of stake yield. So underlying the strategy that we have, we're actually working directly with Lido. That Lido's WSTETH, that'll test it. And the way to think of tAssets is that, and particularly in the domain of Ethereum, which is tETH, so users contribute ETH to us and receive tETH in return, which is redeemable for the original ETH plus this additional yield that I'm talking about. So the yield is generated by a smart contract strategy that dynamically optimizes between staking ETH and leveraging interest rate arbitrage on lending protocols across EVM compatible chains. So think of Aave, Compound, Spark. So what this does is that it ensures a baseline yield equivalent to the native ETH staking rate. So think of that as Lido's stETH, also capturing additional returns from inefficiencies. So it really solves 3 specific solutions. The first problems, rather. The first thing is that it democratized access to this strategy, so users can earn this additional arbitrage yield. The second thing is that tAsset keeps the market efficient. It aims to unify fragmented interest rates market. So when you think about, DeFi protocols, borrowing lending rates are all over the place, right? You'll see Aave giving a certain yield for the same asset, and then obviously Compound Spark can be widely different. And we're unifying that with tETH, and it's designed to also at the same, by doing this strategy, it's converging Ethereum's on-chain borrowing lending rates, keeping the market efficient. Why is this important? If you look at traditional finance, if rates are all over the place, it's very hard to build fixed income products. And I'll just give an example. If no one's going to really, besides maybe your parents, lend you US dollar at like 1%, which is way below the government bond yield, right? So treat that as like a baseline of sort. The moments, let's just say out there, there's someone lending at 1%, you can just borrow as much as you want and put it riskless of course, into treasury bonds and earn that arbitrage yield. So that's exactly what tAsset is doing. And the third reason why tAsset exists is that it powers the second component, which is DOR. Happy to also jump right into it, but I'm sure you might have some questions around what tAsset is.
Well, yeah, but before we get into DOR, which is, again, the validated service consensus mechanism that gives you, the preferred rates, which is sort of wild to conceptualize, a little complicated, but again, brilliant and makes total sense. How far away are we, Brendan, from people like my parents or your parents, or all, the boomers who have most of the money, literally all the money in the world right now, minus the crypto degens of our age who have made an absolute bag? But when do you think they're going to be like, man, honestly, crypto's not just this scammy space right now that's taking everyone's money and rug pulling, where I can actually use fixed income, and instead of snagging a government bond or an interest rate from my bank at 2 to 4%, maybe, I don't even think you can get 5%, but like a couple percent, or you can come to the crypto world and snag a very legitimate 8 to 20. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's tons of people like our parents who have good money sitting on the sidelines in very fixed, reputable, safe ways to just earn very small yield. But when they understand that there are other safe ways to earn reputable, respectful, legitimate yield, like, I just feel like it's going to happen one day, and a lot of this TradFi money is going to get sucked over to crypto for just insanely high interest rates. How far away from this do you think are we?
Yeah, that's a great question. So if you would ask me, a few weeks ago, I would say it would probably take quite a while, like 5-10 years. But we are kind of in a very interesting situation right now, right? With what's going on in the US and with Trump's administration. I think when you look at how different administrations have run or like just tackled crypto in general, it's been a pretty far spectrum. You have on the one side, everything's a security, ETH is a security, and you have agencies within different I guess bureaucracies, like saying, hey, this is my jurisdiction, this is yours. That is clearly changing, right? And I didn't really believe it myself until last week when we saw all the executive orders being passed through, Trump launching his own meme coin, signing, freeing Ross, right? Doing so many different things. He's taking the other side of the extreme approach, which it's, not to say, whether that's right or wrong, but it's definitely opening up the space. And I think you can also see the reactions from different traditional finance institutions coming from all the different banks that have came out over the past few days to just say, hey, we're looking deeply into crypto now. Hey, it's possible that we'll provide Bitcoin custody. We'll even, the moment the regulations are clear, we're going to start offering derivatives trading on these products. I think it's coming sooner than you think. So, I'm not surprised if that's, 2 to 3 years away. I think one key part of solving this, especially to bring it into the hands of retail, as well as, just the mass population is user experience, right? I think there's still a lot of things that needs to be done.
100%.
How people access, whether it's the wallet or just transactions and knowing how to read these things. That's a huge hurdle. Yeah, I would love to hear your thoughts there, but I think we have quite a bit to go from the user experience front. I think these traditional finance banks, if they do accept DeFi or crypto in general, they would definitely make it a lot easier for people to access the same kind of, financial services that we can right now, but in the similar fashion that they currently do right now. So that's the key thing, a user experience, an interface that is clean.
I completely agree. You and I are in the exact same yacht. I think most of us are too, but it comes down to like when I think of, you can't even really think of your parents because both my parents are pretty tech savvy. I sort of have to think of my grandma where it's like, there's just not a single world where I could ever onboard my grandma and get her a Phantom wallet or a MetaMask wallet. Like it just wouldn't happen. Her using, a Canadian, I'm Canadian, her using a Canadian bank account that offered liquid staking services or just, staking services to grab a higher yield than the traditional bonds or interest rates, that could work. So I think until the big banks, and every country sort of has a monopoly of banks, especially Canada, where there's really, 99% of the population uses 5 of them. But with that being said, unless the banks really integrate these services to just fortify your point, I don't see a world where the boomers and the masses really get on board under the sort of current user experience. It's just way too much of a shit show. I mean, heck, I've onboarded dozens and dozens of friends and people in my network to the space, and it's not easy for super tech savvy people like us. So how could the people with the money, i.e. the boomers, want to do this? It's just not worth it for them. So that's, you sort of have to do the whole Steve Jobs iPhone moment where you have to make it so friggin' easy and so seamless and simple. Otherwise, it's just not going to happen. So I think that's going to happen sooner rather than later. I think last week, I forget the name of the bill, but even Trump gassed that bill that said like the banks couldn't and now can self-custody digital assets, for their clients. So I think it's just going to start. But then the question comes down to like, okay, well, if you're going to have hundreds of billions, if not trillions of dollars off chain on these banks, and they're offering, let's just say 3% for the sake of ease, why would they want to start giving 10%? Like, it's not like more money is going to come in. Maybe I'm wrong there. Maybe I'm not seeing the picture clear enough or wide enough. But you know what I mean by that? Where it's like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. For them, it ain't broke. It's still working. So why would they ever give 10? That's sort of how I see it,
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I think, I guess there is going to be someone out there that, wants to compete with the establishment.
Yes.
And that's probably going to drive them to start acting, really.
100%.
Otherwise, you're exactly right. They're very comfortable where things are.
Yeah.
But things need to change. And I think, the new administration is really pushing hard on this.
I agree. Brendan, you're on a roll here. We do need to give a huge and quick shout out to our sponsor of the show, PrimeXBT. And when we get back, we are going to continue buzzing and we're going to get right into DORs, the decentralized offered rates. Until then, huge shout out to PrimeXBT, longtime friends and longtime sponsors of the Crypto News podcast. We love these guys and gals as they offer a robust trading system for both beginners and professional traders. It doesn't matter if you're a rookie or a vet. You can easily design and customize your layouts and widgets to best fit your trading style. PrimeXBT is also running an exclusive promo for listeners of the Crypto News podcast. Use the promo code CryptoNews50. That is CryptoNews50, all one word, to receive 50% of your deposit credited to your trading account. Again, that is CryptoNews50, all one word, to receive 50% of your deposit credited to your trading account. And now back to the show with Brendan. Let's jump right into it. DORs, I did a little bit of research on this. I think you're episode number 410, and I've still never heard of this term in crypto, which is wild. And that's on me. I got to be more switched on. The cap's on me there. That's totally my bad. But when I was doing research, the sort of best term that I came up with, and I'm going to throw this over to you, but a DOR is an actively validated service consensus mechanism introduced to establish accurate reference rates, enabling a wide range of fixed income products in the digital asset space. A lot of big jargon, a lot of big words in there. If I read that to my parents, they'd be like, what the hell is going on? My parents are smart cookies. Explain that to me like I'm 5 years old and tell me why it's so powerful, why it's so useful, and why it really has a chance at really going mega mainstream in crypto.
Yeah, for sure. No, I mean, it's no one to blame here. DOR is a very, very new concept that, we started through us, right? We innovated this, we created this concept, went out publicly in September of last year. In fact, only recently, DeFi Llama just recognized our protocol as a new concept, and it's under its own tag called DOR, D-O-R. So, and that only happened like a week and a half ago when we looked up, and they actually moved us from, previously they had us tagged as liquid staking. Now we're in our own complete category.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, and you got it exactly right in terms of like how you understand what DOR is. But let me just try to explain it in a simpler fashion and to provide some context behind how this idea came about. So DOR, a few years ago, when I was leaving Morgan Stanley, I actually have a couple friends already in the crypto world, and I went to some senior guys at Chainlink and I asked them, hey, is there a way that we can work together to power a decentralized benchmark rate? Because, a lot of fixed income in general in traditional finance, in fact, all of it requires a benchmark rate for it to exist. So they were pretty excited. We had a few discussions, got to the details, and we realized, okay, if we were to work at Chainlink, the model would completely change. Using the Oracle mechanisms of Chainlink, you would have to tweak it quite significantly. So Ben Chan, head of engineering at Chainlink, was a close friend, as came over. We hung out, we sat down, and he said, hey, why don't you guys just try it yourself? And I'm happy to come on as a strategic advisor. I went over to BAN protocol, which, if you recall, back in the day, it's an OG protocol, one of the earliest Oracle mechanisms as well. One of the co-founders went to University of Meade at Michigan. So I asked him the same questions, got the same response, and he came on as well to help, in conceptualizing this idea. And really, the best way to explain DOR, decentralized offered rate, is to look at it from a traditional finance perspective and then trying to piece it back into crypto. So let's take a history lesson, a history class. Let's go back to the 1980s. In the 1980s, the fixed income market was big, but it wasn't that big. It's clearly certainly not the size that it is today, where it's 5 times larger than equities. I think it was more comparable in size at that point in time. In terms of product, you can get like a mortgage, you can get a loan. But when you go to different banks for, say, a mortgage, I go to Citibank and I get a mortgage, they'll give me a term sheet, and the term sheet would have a reference rate on it. And most of the time, it was a unique reference rate that was built by that bank and for that bank. So it could say something like the Citibank prime rate. If you go to Bank of America, it would be like the Bank of America reference rate.
Yeah.
And the issue then is that because of how fragmented all these benchmark rates were, it was very hard for people to recycle risk, right? So liquidity was often stuck within a bank. So if I get a mortgage for a bank, they would have to hold that mortgage throughout the life of say if it's a 30-year term, they would hold it all the way. That all changed in 1981 when LIBOR was born. So LIBOR stands for London Interbank Offered Rate. And when LIBOR was born, it basically changed the whole game of fixed income, because LIBOR essentially unified all the different benchmarks where banks were coming together and saying, hey, instead of using independent benchmark rates, we would use this one reference rate that everyone could trust and everyone can come together to use. And from then on, the next year, interest rate swaps were developed. It didn't exist before that. A few years later, mortgage-backed securities were developed. A bunch of new products started developing in the fixed income world, and then you could just see a hockey puck in terms of fixed income volumes and contract size just developing into the size that it is today. Now, if you look at how LIBOR works in principle, it works through a consensus mechanism of a bunch of banks coming together and independently providing their view of what a certain benchmark rate would be in the future. So LIBOR was referencing what banks will be willing to lend each other unsecured overnight, basically at 3 months in different tenors overseas in basically in London. And that worked for 40 years. And a lot of fixed income products basically use this. But over the years, people realized that banks were actually manipulating and colluding,
of course,
to just favor their trading P&L, right? And that was found out in later in 2010s, and a lot of banks got fined. And the issue there was that banks were providing their view, but they didn't have to show it, they didn't have to prove anything, and even if they lied about it, they wouldn't get slashed. So if you look at how LIBOR works, it's kind of like an Oracle, where Oracle decentralizes data, but with an Oracle, you get slashed, you lie about it, right? And there's a bunch of people that are checking the data underlying it. So with LIBOR, it turned out to be a terrible system, but we used it to price everything for 40, 50 years. And it was recently replaced with a new benchmark called SOFR, SOFR. Now, SOFR came out 2 years ago officially when the market adopted it. And SOFR is a different type of benchmark where it was it's a very centralized model where data is taken from basically one exchange when you're building a term structure, so a benchmark rate on it. And essentially it's, a lot of the issue underlying it is that it's extremely centralized. Now, bringing all this back, all this history back into crypto, when you look at Ethereum is an extremely decentralized world, right? It's a decentralized economy. And if you want to build a benchmark rate, there are people that are building benchmark rates out there right now. There are organizations that are doing it. The issue, however, is that all of them are mainly centralized. So our view is that if you're building a benchmark rate in crypto, you should build a decentralized benchmark rate. So DOR, in short, is a decentralized benchmark rate. And in principle, it looks very similar to LIBOR, certain aspects of it, plus SOFR, built in the form of an oracle, which adds in, simple blockchain principles of staking and smashing to solve the problem of, people lying, people colluding. And we've also introduced new stakeholders that work together to power this new economy of incentives such that new benchmark rates can exist in a very simple framework format to allow benchmark rates to exist and new primitives to then exist in crypto at the same time. So our view is that benchmark rates need to exist in crypto if we want to have a fixed income space, like a very vibrant fixed income space. And that's exactly what we're trying to solve. We're like the framework, the layer underneath to power all these new instruments that don't exist yet, that we believe will start coming out very soon.
I love that. Walk me through the usability, the functionality, how someone can use the platform here. Again, you guys got a bunch of different products, services that you offer. If I want to get involved with Treehouse, walk me through the workflow. How do I get up and running? How do I get dancing?
Yeah, for sure. There are two products, right? So there's tAssets as well as DOR. Now, DOR is similar to an oracle, right? I mean, everybody knows Chainlink, but it's mostly protocols and institutions that are using the oracle underlying it. And it's harder for a retail to get involved, to go down to the data. There's obviously a lot of savvy people that go and look at oracles and the data underlying it, but it's harder for the mass retail to get in. So I think it's a similar structure for DOR, where if you want to get involved, it's mainly protocols that we are partnering with. We're talking to a bunch of market makers. We're talking to a bunch of staking houses. We've signed on 15 of them already, some of the biggest names that collectively hold majority of staking power in Ethereum. But anyone can get involved would be on the tAsset side. So tAsset is our way for users to say, hey, while I may not, get involved in this DOR side, and it's a very institutional product, there is a way that you can participate. And by holding and just holding tAssets, essentially, you can take your ETH. We're starting with just ETH. We're going to have multiple tAssets. Users can deposit their ETH, receive a receipt token, and now all of a sudden they're earning this proof of stake yield plus this arbitrage yield, and they're also powering DOR. So how does this kind of intertwine? As I mentioned earlier, there are 5 main roles and actors, stakeholders that power DOR. One of them is delegation. So you can use your tAsset to delegate into specific panelists as well as operators of DOR and earn an incentive payout essentially for doing this work and by powering the crypto economic security of the DOR system. So again, just to summarize, users can get involved through tAssets and they get access to 3 things. One is, again, democratized access to interest rate arbitrage, this additional yield that is just freely sitting there. The second thing is that they're helping keep the market efficient. So if you want to build benchmark rates, just putting on this trade, you're helping normalize the market and making it efficient. And finally, you're powering DOR.
Gotcha. Amazing. Brandon, what an episode. Really appreciate you coming on here. Any news, products, services that are popping off? Obviously, this episode is going to air a week from today. And we'll be going live on Monday, February 3rd. But anything popping off over the next couple of weeks, months that you want to give us some alpha on, give us some news, some breaking news before we let you go here?
Yeah, for sure. I can't name the exact protocols, but we're going to be on some of the biggest protocols shortly. It comes to borrowing lending, as well as, I guess, pricing points, if you want to call it that. Now, on the DOR side, within the month of February, we're working on a project which we call Project Bamboo. And we're working with some of the biggest market makers in the space, some of the biggest hedge funds in the space. And our goal is to power the first ever fork market on Ethereum staking rate.
Wow.
The goal for us is to hit 1 billion in trading volumes. And we've been working on it for the past few months. We're on track. A lot of institutions are getting involved. They're looking at DOR. They're essentially using DOR as a reference rate to power this forward instrument, which would be one of the first of its kind ever in crypto. And it's an extremely important product because it can set the stage. Basically, forward sets the stage for a lot of other products in fixed income. So we're very excited for that. And, stay tuned. We'll love to announce that hopefully very soon.
I love that. Really appreciate you coming on here. Before we let you go, can you please let our listeners know where they can find you personally and, of course, Treehouse online and on socials?
Yeah, for sure. So to access Treehouse, you can get on our website. It's treehouse.finance, to spell TREEHOUSE.finance or .fi. You can find me on Twitter. I go by the name, I'm not sure if my name pops up on here, but it's My2Gueis, so MyTWOGWEIS. You can find me on Twitter /X.
What's behind that? What's the
So I used to write a lot. I mean, just in general, I love to write, and specifically related to financial markets and financial commentary. So I used to call commentary that I write to send out to all my clients at Morgan Stanley just my 2 cents. And when I got into crypto, Gueis, it's like the equivalent of a cent. So I picked up that name as My2Gueis.
I love it. That is incredible. Folks, what an episode with Brendan Go, co-founder and CEO of Treehouse Labs. They are doing and working on some incredible stuff here. And what an episode with Brendan. We touched a little bit of everything. We obviously did a deep dive of Treehouse, the fixed income market, tAssets and tETH. Decentralized offered rates, also known as DOR. He gave us a little bit of secret sauce on Project Bamboo, the history of benchmarking interest rates, and capturing returns from market inefficiencies. Huge shout out to Brendan and the team for making this happen. If you guys enjoyed this one, I hope you did. Please do subscribe. It would mean the world to my team and I. Speaking of the team, love you guys. Thank you so much for everything. And back to the listeners, keep on growing those bags and keep on staying healthy, wealthy, and happy. Don't forget to touch some grass. And as always, thanks for tuning in. We will see you on the next one. Love you guys. Ciao.